Hello there, everyone. I'm Michael Govier, Phil Goyette, and it's the Prospect Power Half Hour. We do it every Monday for you because you love prospects. You can't get enough of them. They're so much fun. That's what we do here on the Palazzo Podcast. Me and Phil are going to talk about prospects. We'll talk about dynasty. The baseball season's coming to a close here. It's the final week of the season. So if you guys have any questions, you can drop them in the live stream. You can email the show, too, in between times at PalazzoPodcast@protonmail.com. Or you can follow us at Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's.
Utah.
And you can hit up Phil at Phil of Sports. Phil is how he spells his name. Phil of Sports. Phil, how are you?
Good, brother. How you doing?
Rock and roll McDonald's, man. You know, it's a Monday. I got a lot of football stuff on my mind, but I'm really kind of excited about the end of the season here. I'm really thinking a lot about where we are, what happened. Some of the stat lines are fully developed, so we have a complete output of what the players did this year, and I'm really digging into a lot of it and reviewing it and sinking my teeth into it. It's exciting.
Yeah. I didn't put this in the notes, but one of the main leagues I commish actually wrapped last night. It's a head-to-head playoffs. And so what we do is we cut the last week of the season off, sort of like you would do in an NFL league where you don't play week 17 or in some of them even week 16 any longer. How do you feel about cutting the last week of the season off for fantasy purposes?
Well, that's interesting because in my home league, it's a head-to-head league, and the last week of the season, the championship is September 12th. So we missed like the last 3 weeks of the season, which is it's so ridiculous. It used to be that they were worried about all the rookies and prospects that would get called up on the 40-man rosters, and they said it would taint things, and guys wouldn't go on the IL because of it. They would just be sitting there injured, but they wouldn't technically be on IL, so you couldn't do anything with the roster space. And now it's not really like that anymore. I think we could get more out of the season because it's been pretty consistently the same rosters, give or take a few guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, for Roto, obviously, doesn't matter. You go the whole way. But I think most people do play head-to-head. That's my kind of anecdotal evidence that I've seen. I think the majority of fantasy baseball players play head-to-head like football. So I don't know. I think if you're in the championship, the last thing you want to do is have, players on the 4 or 5 good teams that are going to be resting guys this week, which will definitely happen. Like the White Sox really don't have anything to play for, so they're going to give guys a break, I would think, for at least a couple days during the week. So I don't know. I mean, I would hate to see the championship game decided because your starting pitcher didn't go his final turn of the season or something because they were lining them up for the playoffs type of thing.
Yeah, they have the attitude that, you know what, we have 21 weeks that they use, and everybody gets to play each other twice because it's a 14-team league, and that's it. And
yeah,
they're happy with that. It's not a huge deal, I guess. It's just very early, that's all. So I understand. If you want to pull the plug early, pull the plug early. But I want to give you credit because Shane Baz looked really good. He got called up, and he dominated at certain stretches in his efforts, and that's something that you were focusing on here. So credit to you, Phil.
Tooting my own horn.
No one's going to change here. Don't ever change. Don't ever change.
What was that?
That was supposed to be an applause, by the way. So
I like that, though. I don't know what it was, but
and you want me to change? Fuck you!
Yeah, that's what I think that's Will Forte from something. So
you got to get Rock and Roll McDonald's on the sound clip. I can't believe you busted that out at the beginning of the episode there. Rock and Roll McDonald's.
Wesley Willis, classic, man.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace. Rest in power, Wesley Willis. So what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, Shane Baz. I'm just proud of myself for getting one thing right, I think. But I thought the Rays might use the guy because he's good. I mean, he looks legitimate. So I thought there was a chance that they would use him like this to prep him to see if they want to use him in the playoffs. It makes sense to, get him up and get him comfortable with making his debut instead of doing it, around one of the playoffs or something, even if they just use him in a bullpen role in the playoffs. So I wasn't surprised that they called him up. He looked extremely good. I really think the only thing preventing him from being relevant for redraft leagues next year is health. If this guy stays healthy, he could be the real deal. He really has the total package, man. he was spotting the fastball. It was crazy. 98 and painting with it.
McClanahan or Baez?
I think Baez. Is the more complete pitching prospect of the two guys, which is nuts. Also, just think about the what the Rays put together for rookies this year. Rookie of the Year race: Wander, Arozarena, and McClanahan. Like
Pretty
you
good.
could pick any one of those three guys as Rookie of the Year. So impressive.
Yeah, these guys aren't going
and they've
anywhere.
got more. They got more coming too. I mean, Baez next year, Vidal Brujan. That's probably a name we want to keep in mind for redraft next year. He could come up and steal 40 bags next year potentially. So I don't know, exciting franchise. I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys locked in for now that they can take advantage of, and they will trade them before they ever become free agents because that's what they do. But their prowess in the AL East, this could be their decade for sure. The 2020s will be the Rays dominating, or at least always in the mix every year for a playoff spot and World Series aspirations.
Yeah, the city of Tampa / Montreal Rays or whatever kind of shit they're talking about. Split season.
Yeah, that's all hyperbolic crap in my opinion. But we're talking here with Phil. It's the Power Half Hour. We do it every Monday if we can do it. And Phil of Sports on Twitter, MJ Govier on Twitter. What else? What about looking at a 2022 now? Who are some guys that have impressed you that you're excited about that actually have redraft potential?
Yeah, I think now's the time to start thinking about these guys for next year and if you want to get in on them or not. One guy a lot of people are talking about now, MJ Melendez, the minor league home run leader this year, 41 yaks for the Kansas City Royals system. Is he
like Mike Hessman? He's the home run leader. Mike Hessman was the all-time home run king in the minors, but he never did jack in the majors. So.
I put in the notes, the last two players that hit over 40 home runs in one season in the minors were Chris Bryant and Joey Gallo. So I think he's legit, man. Where is Kansas City going to play the kid? That's a good question. I don't know if it'll be some kind of weird catcher DH timeshare with him and Salvi Perez. Or they try him out at first base a little bit to let Salvi stay behind the dish. I don't know. That's an interesting kind of predicament the Royals might be in there, but I think he's ready for the bigs. He could struggle. He could also be one of these guys that gets really hot, really cold, like a Austin Riley type of thing, where you might have a few weeks where he's on a complete tear. And you might have a few weeks because he has a lot of swing and miss in his game, where he slows down and he hurts you and you might have to bench him. So, but he's definitely, I think, catcher eligibility with the potential to hit 30 home runs in the bigs. He's a guy that's got to be on everybody's radar. Redraft down to like 12-team redraft leagues next year, I would think.
Wow. Really? Okay. Well, I'll keep an eye out for that. That's pretty highly thought of. That's lofty. So I like lofty though.
This is his second great season he's had in the minors. So
that's two.
He's had some track record for himself.
Give me two.
Give two.
That's two. Good for him. Yeah, that's great. All righty. If you got Jasper's here. Hello, Jasper. Welcome in. He's always late, but he makes it. It's not about when you get here.
No.
It's just that you show up. So thanks for being here, Jasper. Thanks for anybody else who's in the live chat. If you guys have questions, now's the time to ask. Phil is here. He's at your disposal. It's a half hour or less, and that's it. Never more. So get it in now and take advantage of it. Take advantage of your opportunities. He loves Shane Baez. Of course, everybody loves Shane Baez.
Jasper, did you get Shane Baez in your dynasty league that you keep us up to date on? I hope so. I hope you've got him stashed.
Yeah, that'd be nice. The one dynasty league I'm in, I just kind of zoned out because George Montanez is in that league and he's in first and he was so far ahead. I had like 110 points, 115 points. It's a really nice season, but he's at like 145, 146. Oof. So I just was like, I'm not going to sell the farm. I'm just going to sit tight with everything I have and I'll just see you guys later. So
yeah, Roto Dynasty can be tough too if some of the tanking franchises can really throw the Roto off. Like if you're not competing for certain categories at the bottom.
That's exactly what's happening here. There's massive disparity.
Yep.
So
then somebody can just dominate like what you're having happening. So
Yep.
another reason to go head to head, maybe. Well, Jasper got Baz. That's awesome.
All right, way to go, Jasper! Woohoo! Happy for you, buddy. That's going to be, barring any injury, the Rays. I mean, they got rid of Snell, who was a Cy Young winner, and whatever you think of him, he's a pretty damn good pitcher. He has been. They have so much in the bag that they can just pull into the tricks. Hey, what's next? What do we got in here? We got Snickers. It's like Halloween night. You're digging through your candy bag, and it's got all this awesome stuff like full-size candy bars. That's what the Rays have. They have a bunch of full-size candy bars that they can just go to town on whenever they want. They're very, very lucky and very, very fortunate, but they do the work, so full credit to the Rays.
And they can take the shitty, like, black and orange candies that nobody likes, whatever the flavor of those are, and they can trade them to Pittsburgh for their full-size candy bars. So
that's even more impressive. You're right. They just keep on keeping on. It's incredible. Who the hell is Juan Baez? I'm not familiar with Juan.
We've talked to him about him on the show. He was one of my guys that I thought maybe I said I think the Cardinals are going to make a push for the playoffs. I was right about that, and I thought maybe Juan would get called up as a potential bat they could use. I was wrong about that, but I'm just going to keep talking about the guy until they bring him up because he can really hit. He's a first baseman. He's first baseman only, which is going to kind of stunt his potential unless we get the DH in the NL next year, which would be awesome. But he can hit. He can get on base. He can hit for power. He's kind of a 4 or 5 category guy in the future, I think, for fantasy. And when I was researching before the show, I was in a little surprised that when I looked at Juan's Fangraphs page, they have his hit tool currently as 40 to 45, which was like below average to kind of below average hit tool. But this is a guy that walks over 10% of the time, over double-digit walk rates pretty persistently. He's brought his strikeout rate down to around 20% in AAA this year. And hits for power, his ISO's over 300. So I don't know what else you could want out of a hit tool other than what this guy's doing. So a little just kind of pushback on that. There's no way he's a 40 hit tool, I don't think.
Ooh, all right. I don't know who's doing the numbers there on Fangraphs, but Phil Goyette calling it out.
It could just be an outdated. It could just be an outdated ranking or number, but I would just say I'd be shocked if that's what happens at the next level for Juan. And I hope he gets called up really soon.
But he does have redraft value next year. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he's on the brink. He's close. I just don't. I mean, he looks like a guy that just hits for average, and I don't see. The numbers don't show a lot of potential except this year only. That's what it's like they really took off power-wise. So I wonder if that's park-related or not.
No, I just think he's hitting the age where your power tends to develop. So that's usually the last thing to come along.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll find out next year. I will always tell people I heard about Juan Baez first from Phil Goyette because that's what Phil does. Phil knows what's going on. And as far as Bobby Witt Jr., though, this is nothing new. Everybody knows about him. We all can expect him to be a redraft guy next year. He was a redraft guy this year, and he never came up. But next year will be his year, and he will be. I mean, how high would you draft Bobby Witt Jr. next year?
You know, I really haven't even thought about where I would take him at. I would say when I was thinking about this, he's probably going to go too high for me to draft him anywhere.
Yep.
So I think there's going to be there's still too much risk associated with him being a young player that hasn't seen major league pitching yet for me to invest I don't know what he would go for. He'll probably be, by the end of the spring, if he has a good spring training and people will be popping him in the 5th or 6th round, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised. Yep. Which is it's just way too early. It's just way too early. I do understand the owners that want to grab him though, because I do think he's the kind of guy that could win you a league if he clicks next year. He's like a Tatis, like a Fernando Tatis level talent potentially.
Wow, really?
Especially for fantasy. Especially for fantasy.
That's pretty high praise. Jasper says, staying away from Witt till I see something.
Yeah, which is totally fine, but then that means you're not going to get him. I mean, everybody was stashing Kelnick, Kelnick was going really high in a lot of my redraft leagues in the spring. That didn't work. A lot of people were drafting Wander high. He had a nice season. It did not work for. I don't think it worked for your redraft. You stashed him for 3 months.
If you drafted him high, no. I mean, if you drafted him high, no. But if you got him in like the 240s, or I saw him go often after 200, that's all right. I can live with that.
I think you're still better off using your full roster for that 3 months or whatever it took for Wander to come start producing for your team.
Oh, I agree. I wouldn't do it personally. That's why I didn't do it. So I completely agree with you. In fact, the legend himself, Phil Dussault, would never do something like that. I guarantee he wouldn't take Bobby Witt Jr. and he wouldn't take Wander Franco. That would not be how he would do it, because based on what I've learned about him, that's just not something a guy like him who knows all about this stuff would do. And he is the master right now. So if the Phil wouldn't do it, maybe you guys should all reconsider the fact that we get a little too excited. We're not talking dynasty, we're talking redraft here in this moment.
Yeah.
So
you have to listen to all Phils. I think that's really the more global lesson.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, you're right. This is Phil's world, and we're all just living in it.
Well, there's a reason why, if you think about it. Myself, Dr. Phil, you have Uncle Phil from the Fresh Prince.
Uncle Phil, yes, so, legit. James Avery, respect. Love James Avery. That's important that we listen to our Phils. That's the message on the Palazzo podcast here. Prospects Power Half Hour. 2 L's, 2 Z's. Of course, follow us everywhere and anywhere that you love following people. We're talking a redraft focus here today. So in case you're wondering, you can ask Dynasty questions. We're always ready and willing. But guys like Spencer Torkelson, Brennan Davis, we've talked about Kevin Smith a few times. Where's Russell at? Russell loves Kevin Smith so much. But which one of these guys, Brennan Davis or Tork, will have a better redraft impact in 2022?
I think Torkelson is the guy I want. I think of that class of guys that haven't been up yet but could make an impact next year, I think Torkelson's probably about the top of my list. How do you feel about that as a Tigers aficionado yourself?
Well, I mean, he's progressed nicely. He was a top overall pick. He has all the tools, and he doesn't seem to be phased at each level for the most part. He's been doing fairly well. I mean, there's slumps. They happen. That's baseball, so I don't worry about that. So I think Brennan Davis is a name that I've heard about for the last 2 years at least, but I don't really know much about him other than the fact that he's a Cubs prospect. He's a great hitter.
Yep.
But I haven't really dug into him in detail.
He's just a great hitter, a great just kind of professional athlete with an excellent kind of approach to playing the game, a business-like professional approach. Davis came late to baseball, so he played a lot of sports growing up and was more of a basketball player, I think, in high school.
Oh, like Tony Gonzalez.
And his dad, if you remember, I think this is the correct anecdote. If you remember the television show Hang Time, do you remember the Saturday morning NBC program called Hang Time?
I'm drawing a blank on that one. You stumped me.
About a high school basketball. It was kind of like Saved by the Bell, but they were a high school basketball team.
Oh man, that sounds awesome. I probably saw it.
The coach of the team on the show for a period of time was Reggie Theus. Do you know who Reggie Theus is?
Oh, I love Reggie. Yeah, he was on the NBC. He was their sideline reporter for a while. NBA on NBC.
Yeah, and was a great basketball player back in the day too. Reggie Theus. Well, Reggie Theus is Brennan Davis's dad.
No shit. I didn't. Wow, that's a fun fact.
So blowing your mind. I was hoping I'd get the hang time with you. Hang time, running together. You don't remember that one at all.
I think
it was part of the NBC 95. Saturday morning. Part of the NBC Saturday morning lineup. Saved by the Bell, California Dreams. If you remember that one,
I do remember that. Saved by the Bell, the new class.
Hang Time was the basketball high school drama comedy.
It debuted in September of 95. So by then I was already 15, and I think I was already kind of getting past that. That's the only problem there. So I'm sorry. But I do remember Reggie Theus He was a broadcaster. He was a head coach too, and obviously a great basketball player. So that's cool. I didn't know that. That's fun. We got Rich Manning and Reggie Theus creating baseball players.
Yeah, so Brennan, I think, was primarily a basketball-focused player growing up. Didn't start playing baseball real seriously until like almost the senior year of high school, I think, is the anecdote.
Wow.
So he's made a ton of strides in a very short period of time, and he looks like somebody who's coachable, who will make adjustments if needed. Great athlete, like I said, professional approach. So he could be a future star, absolutely. And the Cubs will probably play him after they get the secure the extra year of eligibility. Get the extra year of service time locked in, and then Brennan Davis can come up, the future of the franchise. So,
well, that's another thing though, Phil. The CBA, we're gonna have a possible lockout, some type of showdown here, possibly. How do you feel about that? How do you see it affecting all of the situation here? Because this could change the landscape.
Could change everything. I hope it does.
I hope it does too.
It could really change everything. So we all got to keep our eye on what's the difference in the pay scale or the service time requirements, or however they're going to negotiate the kind of young players. I think the issue is, and in baseball in particular has had this issue, the more veteran players tend to bargain away the rights of the younger players.
Yep.
In collective bargaining, because it's basically something they can put on the table to give to ownership that doesn't impact them directly. And the lower you go down the scale, the more that's true, right? So you don't see the players union arguing for, well, we need to do something to stop this deal where you're signing 14-year-olds in the Dominican and, handshake deals and giving the family a car or something. You will never hear that, right? Or like an international draft or anything that can make that more equitable, because that's something the veteran players and the players union can give to the owners without any drawback to themselves. Right. So I'm a little skeptical that any deal that comes to fruition through the CBA is going to radically alter how ownership is able to kind of take advantage of younger players and have the leverage to do something like what the Rays are doing, to know that they can lock in a cheap roster, because for no other reason than how the CBA works.
The guys who have the service time manipulation gripes are kind of in a minority, right? It's a small group of players. I mean, Chris Bryant's of the world, these players are the best of the best, so therefore they're not really the majority. Everybody else just kind of gets shuffled up and down, or they get the opportunity when they get it and they take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, and Bryant is a great example. If you give Chris Bryant the decision now at this point in his career, do you want the rules to allow you to be in line to get a nice 6 or 7 year free agency deal that's going to take you through the rest of your career? You can vote for that, or you can vote for more equity for younger players so they don't have to go through what you went through. But the trade-off might be a salary cap, or it might be limiting the length of contracts that a player can get, right? So they got to give the players, it's going to be a negotiation with ownership, and you're going to have to give something up if they want something in return. And so then, and the owners know this. The owners aren't stupid. They're all business people. They know if they can drive a wedge between the union itself, that works in their interest. So
always has. There's no doubt about that. And then there's the whole thing with the qualifying offers, and they brought that in. That was a newer thing recently. It wasn't always a part of baseball, but I don't think that worked quite that well. But it depends who you talk to. I just see so many split factions. I would like to know how united the Baseball Players Association is right now, because that'll dictate everything, because the owners are going to do what they're going to do. And the thing I consider is that the owners will be a little bit more paranoid because they lost so much money in COVID as well. That's a whole nother aspect, or they say they lost so much money. But I don't know if I buy that, because these people have assets that are worth billions of dollars, so they can sit on their duffs and do whatever they want. Players don't have the same built-up wealth and capital at all.
Yeah, and a lot of what major league organizations have turned to recently is being as much real estate investment as sports investment, right? So you've got like the Braves' new development, which is really just kind of like a big real estate development. Or if you think of
Yes.
the Cubs, when I lived in Chicago, the whole time I lived in Chicago, when the Ricketts family owned the Cubs, their focus was on building shit around the ballpark that they owned, right? So they built a hotel, they added the sports book, they completely redeveloped the area around the stadium because they own the land. You know, they get deals on the land. They bought the old Taco Bell or the old McDonald's. Speaking of the Rock and Roll McDonald's, the old McDonald's across the street. So,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
and they still own the land. Like COVID didn't kill that, right? I mean, so
it's an incredible myth. Don't buy. I think most people who are of age get that. Like Jasper says, the owners are full of BS. Yes, of course they are. So that's how they got to be owners. You're not gonna. You have to be a master bullshitter if you want to become a billionaire. It's not something that you just.
And well, they're not. What's the last sports franchise that lost the owner money when they sold the franchise off? Like, it doesn't happen anymore. This isn't
exactly.
Dude, this isn't like 1980 when Mike Ilitch bought the Red Wings and was like having to give cars away to get people to go to the games or whatever. Those days are long gone. That generation of owners took the risk, but a lot of them made a hell of a lot of money. And the generation that came after them, it's just in a totally different stratosphere. And then
that's the same thing happened here in Detroit. Area. The Ilitches were given all these tax breaks and opportunity, and they own all the land around the brand new Little Caesars Arena and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, this is the new business plan. Somebody came up with it and said, hey, this is what we're going to do now. We're not just going to own the teams. We're going to own all the land, and we're going to make a bunch of money off of this. It's a whole complex. It's a whole world we create, and that's what they've done, and that's how it is. But let's get back to prospects before we go. Something you guys do need to keep an eye on and stay focused with is possible CBA changes. But after what Phil just said to me, I kind of feel like, you know what? Yeah. You know, the minor leagues are already been diminished, and the prospects don't have a voice. The people in the minors don't have a voice, so no one's going to suddenly rise up for them. So I think you're right. I think you're right, Phil.
The problem,
yeah. Who the hell's Kyle Stowers?
Yeah, way under the radar guy, but he's having a great year for Baltimore. Looked at his stats before we came on today. 380 on base percentage over full season, which I love. Close. He's major league ready, close to the bigs. Baltimore's a franchise that's struggling to win 50 games this year. So maybe they take a crack at him early in the season, and he could be one of those guys that comes up early in the season next year. And if he catches fire, sticks with the team the whole year. So I think you definitely want to keep him on your radar and redraft, see where he's going. If he's one of these guys that's going ADP after pick 400, those are the type of players you want to keep your eye on that can really basically be a free pick for you that can either get you started really well to start the season or really kind of make or break your whole season. So
3 levels from high A, double A to triple A all this year. 27 home runs total across all 3 levels, and a couple of stolen bases, 7 steals too. That's nice. Striking out a shitload, but the OBP and the walk percentage, he'll hopefully grow from that. But it definitely is somebody who's standing out with numbers that are like, oh, well, this guy's definitely worth taking note of.
You can strike out 35% of the time if you can also get on base 35% of the time. So like if the 350 OBP will pretty much always play if you can slug too.
That's a great point. There's no doubt about it. All right, we're going to wrap up the show here, but before we go, Hans Kraus. Hans, that's awesome. I love that name. Hans Kraus.
Yeah, Kraus. We talked about Hans earlier in the year. I
remember this.
He got traded. Yeah, he got traded to the Phillies, and we both said, what in the hell? And
Spencer
I said,
Howard deal.
I think Kraus might be, the best prospect potentially in that deal. And he made his debut. Didn't look terrible for the Phils. You want to keep your eye on him if he sneaks into the back end of the rotation or as a streamer next year. He could be a guy that could eat some innings, strike some dudes out. He'll be pitching in the NL, which is easier to pitch in. So he'd be a guy.
Unless there's universal DH with the CBA. Oh, bye.
Oh yeah.
But even then, there's a whole other story. We could do a whole debate about the myth of that too. There's a lot of interesting numbers that I've seen from that. But that's it for this show. We did a great job. Phil Goyette talked prospects. He did it with us. He stayed up late. He had to watch his footy ball over there, which was a really exciting match, huh?
Football. It was a good match. Yeah, it was a very good match tonight. The M23 derby between Crystal Palace and Brighton.
I don't know. That sounds. I know what Crystal Palace
have-
and Brighton are, but the M23 Derby, very cool.
Yeah, they have like a, that's it's a rivalry.
Oh, okay. Well, of course.
Apparently.
There's always rivalries. Every country has them. Thanks, Jasper. Says, y'all be cool. And thanks again for the show. As always, Jasper, we do our best. Thanks for being a part of the show. Follow Phil on Twitter at Phil of Sports. And you follow me, MJ Govier, G-O-V is in Victor IR, and Plaza Podcast, 2 L's.
Utah.
2 Z's.
Give me 2.
There it is. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the last week of the baseball season. We'll be back later this week with a full episode, too, because I want to talk more baseball. Until then, you guys keep it real.